back to Dollars and Cents with Freedman Financial on North Shore 1049. My name is Marc Freedman. I'm President and CEO of Freedman Financial, located in Peabody, Massachusetts, where we're providing financial planning and investment management advice to individuals and families all throughout the North Shore, the Merrimack Valley, and the southern New Hampshire area since 1968. Not me. I was 2. Dad started the firm back then. I joined our firm in 1991. After graduating from Babson College in 1989, I worked for a year at the Ship Restaurant. I was the restaurant manager there. As many of you remember that restaurant, no longer there. Now the Christmas tree shops, of course. I also sold Chinese food takeout containers for a company called Atlas Paper Company. And in the midst of that, I also hosted karaoke shows. And so, yeah, I've got a little bit of a background in entertainment. And yeah, I used to host karaoke shows in downtown Faneuil Hall. There was a bar there called Seaside. Maybe you remember there was Seaside and Cityside for those of you that used to go down there. On Tuesday night, I was singing songs in there because it was generally pretty quiet. And if no one showed up to sing, you got to keep singing to get people to come in. So a few people ran, a couple of women walk in. One of them asked to sing a duet with me. Her name was Laura. She sang the song Summer Nights with me. And the rest is history. Laura asked me that day at the bar as we're talking, she says, "Hey, what's your last name?" I said, "My last name's Freedman." She says, "My last name's Weinstein. You want to get married?" Yeah, that's true. That's really what happened. And 4 months later, we were engaged. 14 months later, we were, 4 months later, we were engaged. 14 months later, we were married. And we will be celebrating our 27th wedding anniversary this September. So, yeah, congratulations to Laura. And me, I guess. 27 years, it's pretty cool. And we got 5 kids, it's pretty awesome. Anyways, that's how I got into the business. I started in 1991. My business partner, Marion, joined us in 2000. She became a partner of the firm in 2010. So Marion and I both run the show. Dad retired in 2007. So here we are. Well, it's just me today. Marion sometimes joins me here in the studio, but today it is just me. I want to talk to you a little bit about putting into perspective market returns in light of this volatile market. Earlier in the show, I talked about the fact that I proved to you the fact that a 60-40 portfolio holds up a lot better than does a 100% stock portfolio when you go through the full cycle of markets going down and going back up again. I illustrated to you how when an investment just in the S&P 500 goes down, an investment in a 60-40 mix doesn't go down nearly as much. And it returns to its original value, that 60-40 mix, a lot quicker than does that S&P 500 mix. But oftentimes you hear the conversation, well, over the past umpteen years, the stock market has done 9% or 8% or 7%. Well, here's a report that I have from JP Morgan that says historically over the past 20 years, the S&P 500 has produced an average rate of return, including dividends, of 7.4%. How would you like that? 7.4%. Some might say, oh, that's great. Some would say, oh, that's it? Because it used to be 9. If you went back all the way to the 1920s, that number was around 9. But over the past 20 years, it's been 7. But so what? Whether it's 7 or 9 doesn't matter, because the illustration that I'm going to share with you today really is going to blow you away. I am going to go back until 1926. And I have a report here that's called Long-Term Asset Returns of the S&P 500, or their reasonable equivalent, because there really wasn't the S&P 500 in the 20s and the 30s and the 40s. They modified them to go along. So if you go back to 1926 to 2018, and you ask yourself, what was the return of the S&P 500 or its facsimile in each year? So you pick 1937, 1941, 1964, 1981. At the end of the year, we always talk about how the S&P 500 did that year. Well, I worked with Invesco to have them build what's called a histogram, where you build this chart that shows us what was the performance in various periods of time. And so I want you to imagine a straight line that goes, a horizontal line that goes across, and in the middle of that line you draw a 0. And then in increments to the right and to the left, each increment represents a 5% increase in return. So the first increment positively is 0 to 5, the next is 5 to 10, the next is 10 to 15. You get it, right? And on the other side, it's 0 to negative 5, is negative 5 to negative 10, and it goes that way. So I said, I want you to drop the year where the return corresponds to the performance number. So for instance, where and I'm going to just use this as an example. I'm going to need to put on my glasses here for a second so I can see this number. So in 1993, the S&P 500 returned between 10 and 15%. So we'd put 1993 on that chart, on that bar, and we'd start to build up these little columns, I guess we'd call them. So I told you the S&P 500 returned 7-point-something% over the past 20 years, 9-something over the past, since inception. So if we look at going back all of those years, it doesn't matter whether it's 7 or 9 because that still falls within the band of 5 to 10%, right? Mm-hmm. So how many times over the past, I don't know, 2018 to 2026, quick math says that is 92 years, over the period of time, how many times did the market end between 5 and 10%? Think about that. So you have 92, I think I'm doing that right, 2018 minus 1926, I believe that is 92. So you got 92 choices, 92 years with numbers. How many times did the market end between 5 and 10% for the year? What do you think? I know the answer. You can shout it out if you want, but I'm going to tell you. The answer is 8. 8 times. It's really remarkable. You were right. Jay, good guess. And all of you that yelled out 8, I heard you. Congratulations. You win a prize for listening. But what's rather interesting is that in order to get that average rate of return, we needed to see a lot of returns that varied way out on the spectrum. So let me give you an example. Earlier in the show, I told you about how the market was at its all-time high in 2007. So from 2007 to 2009, the stock market dropped from its all-time high to its lowest that we can remember, and then it responded back the other way. So what did the market do in 2007? How did it end up? What was its range? In 2007, the market, believe it or not, for the year was up between 5 and 10%. Now, that may not be surprising to you because you hear, well, the market had a great run going into October of 2007, and then it fell off, but still, when we ended the year, we were still up between 5 and 10% in the S&P 500. And then came 2008. That was a tough year, right? That was the financial crisis, all of that. How did that end up? Well, that 2008 led us to a return of negative 35 to negative 40. Negative 35 to negative 40. But the worst year, at least according to what most people think, was 2009, because that's where we hit our low number. Would it surprise you if I told you that 2009 ended the year up between 25 and 30%? I think that would surprise you, wouldn't it? Because I just told you, October of 2007 was the high point, March of 2009 was the low point. But what we forget is that when we hear about performance numbers, they're generally measured January to December. Oftentimes you can hear other performance numbers of, the high of October, the low in March. So in 07, you got a return between 5 and 10%. In 08, you got a return between 35 and 40%. This is what the typical S&P 500 index did. In 2009, you were up 25 to 30%. How about 2010? 2010, up between 15 and 20. 2011, up 0 to 5. 2012, up 15 to 20. 2013, up 30 to 35. 2014, up 10 to 15. 2015, I can keep going here, up 0 to 5. 2016, up 10 to 15. 2017, up 20 to 25. And up, finally, in 2018, performance 5 to 10%. So the only time during that entire stretch of a lousy market did the lousy and great market, did the market ever The market produced a return between 5 and 10% only one time during those 10-year period, that 10 years. That's pretty amazing. So we talk about getting a rate of return between 7 and 8% on a S&P 500 index. Yet if you think you're going to get that consistently, you're going to see that on a linear number. You're going to get 7% this year, 7% the next year. Maybe you'll get 8, maybe you'll get 6. No, not even close will that happen. You got to be willing to ride it out. What I've asked someone to do is to do the long-term asset return projections on 60/40 portfolios and what that would look like. But what is amazing to me is how people so zone in on, I need to beat the S&P 500. And I'll ask you, why? And most people say, because that's what I thought I was supposed to be beating. That's not a good answer. That's not responsible financial planning or investment management or portfolio construction. No, what you got to do is first and foremost understand what does your portfolio need to look like so you can most comfortably accomplish your financial goals down the road. Not right now. Down the road. Because at some point, whether it's age 65, 63, 70, 75, I don't care what the year is, you're no longer going to get a paycheck. You're going to get Social Security, perhaps you'll get a pension, or one or the other. But the bulk of it is going to have to come from the money that you have. And you don't want to take the risk of hitting that marker, that date in your life, a year after the market just dropped 40%. You can't be playing, oh, I'm going to try to beat the market. A lot of people ask me, Mark, as I get older, should I be changing my portfolio? Should I be making it more conservative? And my belief has been, if you're 50 plus, build a 70-30, 60-40 portfolio, and chances are for the rest of your life, you'll never have to do anything more than that. You'll rebalance along the way, you'll do some tweakings here and there, but for the most part, that 60-40 is going to work out just fine. We have clients who are in their 90s, 100 years old right now, and have loved maintaining that 60-40, something around their mix. We all heard the old rule of thumb. The old rule of thumb said, you buy your age in bonds, right? That's one of those old wives' tales. So when you're 80, you buy 80% of your portfolio in bonds, 20% in cash. That worked great in the 70s and certainly in the 80s when bonds were paying 12 and 15%. Oh, I remember those days, Mark. Yeah, I know you remember those days. Those days ain't coming back anytime soon. We have to rethink this. We have to rebuild your portfolio so that it's right for you now, right for you later, and allow you to live the lifestyle that you want in retirement for the rest of your life so that you can enjoy it, doing what you've always wanted to do, achieve those goals. And at Freedman Financial, that is what we help you do. That's going to do it for us today. That's going to do it for Dollars and Cents. I hope you've enjoyed financial advice in a language you can understand. I've got to get out of here, but I will be back next Sunday from 8 to 9. Thanks for listening to Dollars and Cents with Freedman Financial on North Shore 1049.
I need a dollar, 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 that's what I need. Hey, hey. Well, I need a dollar, 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 that's what I need. Hey, hey. Said I need a dollar, 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 that's what I need. And if I share with